At a deserted gas station in Arizona, 5 bikers surrounded Kate, scribbling on her car, smashing her phone, and mocking her as just another helpless tourist. Their leader, Greg, smirked and declared it was their turf, warning her to back off before things got worse. But Kate stayed calm, and her unshaken demeanor only fueled their arrogance. What they didn't know was who they were really dealing with and how costly their mistake would be. What happened next left the entire crowd speechless. But let's start from the beginning. The afternoon sun bore down mercilessly on the desolate gas station. The asphalt shimmered, and even the lone soda machine buzzed like it was about to surrender to the heat. Caitlin Kate Walker, in her well-worn white tee and denim shorts, looked like the quintessential tourist, relaxed, unbothered, and far too ordinary to catch anyone's attention. Her old sedan sat by the pump, its paint dull from years of road trips. If anyone cared to look closer, they'd notice the intensity in her blue-gray eyes or the way her hands moved with deliberate precision. But, of course, no one did. Kate reached for a bottle of water, her mind wandering to the folder in her trunk. It wasn't just any paperwork. It held the kind of secrets that could dismantle an empire. But for now, she looked like a woman fighting to keep her car running another 100 miles. The silence shattered. A deafening roar of motorcycle engines rolled in, breaking the stillness like a thunderclap. 5 bikes screeched to a halt, their riders towering like storm clouds over the desert horizon. Leather jackets adorned with snarling skulls and jagged patches screamed rebellion. The leader, a hulking man with a beard that looked like it hadn't seen a razor since the Clinton administration, took one look at Kate and smirked. "Hey there, sweetheart," he bellowed, his voice thick with mockery. "That clunker of yours still moves, or are you here just to collect dust?" His crew erupted into laughter, their jeers echoing across the barren landscape. One of them, a wiry guy with a shaved head and a smirk too big for his face, swaggered over and accidentally bumped into Kate, sending her water bottle tumbling to the ground. "Oops," he sneered. "Guess you should have seen me coming, huh? You out here all by yourself, Grandma? Or did your hubby crawl into the trunk to hide from us?" Kate bent down, retrieving the bottle without a word. Her movements were slow, deliberate, almost as if she were daring them to push further. The silence only seemed to encourage them. "Oh, come on now," the leader, Greg, growled, stepping closer. "Don't go giving me the cold shoulder. We're just here to liven up your day." The kick came without warning. Greg's boot slammed into the side of her car, leaving a dent so deep it might as well have been a signature. He stood back, admiring his work with a grin that practically begged for a punchline. "Looks better now, doesn't it? A little personality never hurt anyone," he chuckled. The crowd of onlookers, a mix of travelers and gas station employees, watched in frozen silence. A mother ushered her child back into their car, while an elderly couple exchanged nervous glances. Kate straightened, her eyes locking onto Greg's with an unsettling calm. The kind of calm that makes you wonder if you've just made a terrible mistake. "You done?" she asked, her voice flat, almost bored. The laughter stopped. Greg blinked, caught off guard by her response. His smirk faltered for a fraction of a second before he barked another laugh. "Am I done? Lady, I haven't even started." The rest of the gang whooped in agreement, one of them picking up a marker and scribbling something crude on the hood of Kate's car. Kate glanced down at her car, then back at Greg. For a split second, something flickered in her expression, something sharp, calculating, but it was gone just as quickly, replaced by a faint smile. "Take your time," she said lightly. "You're going to want to savor every second." Greg tilted his head, unsure if she was bluffing or just crazy. Behind him, one of the bikers grabbed the gas pump, his finger itching to turn it into a weapon of humiliation. The crowd began to murmur, their unease growing. Kate didn't move, her hands resting lightly on her hips. The sun gleamed off her car's side mirror, casting a glint that hit Greg square in the eye. He squinted, annoyed, as if the universe itself had decided to join the opposition. And then she smiled again, just enough to make him hesitate. The chapter ended with the sound of a gas nozzle clicking, a stark reminder of just how explosive things could get. Greg stood there, towering over Kate with a grin so wide it could have stretched to the state line. He twirled a black marker between his fingers like it was a trophy. "All right, boys," he called to his crew. "Let's give her ride a little makeover. Can't have her driving around in such a boring set of wheels now, can we?" The wiry one, Jake, snickered as he uncapped the marker and started drawing jagged lines across the hood of Kate's car. The design wasn't art, more like a 5-year-old scribbles on a sugar rush. Kate stood by the gas pump, her posture still relaxed, like someone watching a mediocre street performance. She didn't say a word, and that silence was starting to gnaw at Greg. He stepped closer, leaning down until his face was uncomfortably close to hers. "Look," he said, his tone shifting to mock concern, "we're just trying to help, but you're making it real hard to be nice here. How about you cough up something useful? Your wallet, maybe?" Kate tilted her head, meeting his gaze with an unsettling calm. Her silence felt less like fear and more like the steady hum of an engine about to rev. Greg frowned, his patience slipping. He yanked her phone out of her hand and held it up for the group to see. "What's this? You think you're gonna call someone to save you?" he sneered. Without waiting for a response, he tossed the phone to the ground. The screen shattered with a sharp crack, and Greg's boot came down on it a second later, reducing it to a splintered mess. "Oops," he said with mock innocence. "Looks like I dropped it." The gang roared with laughter, but Kate's expression remained unchanged. She bent down, picked up the shattered pieces of her phone, and dusted off her hands as if nothing had happened. "Think you've had enough fun yet?" she asked, her voice calm and detached, like she was commenting on the weather. The unexpected response hung in the air for a moment, silencing the laughter. Greg's grin faltered before coming back stronger, but now it looked more forced. "Not even close," he growled. Jake, always eager to escalate, grabbed the gas pump and aimed the nozzle at Kate's car. With a press of the handle, a stream of gasoline sprayed across the hood, trickling down the sides and pooling beneath the tires. "There we go," Jake crowed. "Now you're ready to hit the road in style. Maybe a little lighter fluid next?" The group laughed again, their voices grating against the rising tension in the air. Kate shifted her weight, folding her arms across her chest. Her gaze flicked to the gas pump, then back to Greg. "You boys sure about this?" she asked lightly. Greg barked a laugh. "Oh, I'm sure, sweetheart. What are you going to do about it? Call your husband?" "Oh, wait." He gestured to the shattered phone. "Looks like you're fresh out of luck." A ripple of unease passed through the small crowd of onlookers. The elderly couple from earlier whispered to each other, while a teenage gas station clerk hovered nervously near the door, his hand poised over the phone. Kate stepped forward, her calm demeanor now tinged with something sharper, something that made even Greg hesitate for half a second. She smiled. "All right," she said softly, her tone almost playful. "Your turn's almost up." The gang froze for a beat, unsure if they were being mocked or warned. Greg straightened, masking his brief confusion with bravado. "We'll see about that," he snapped, but the seed of doubt had been planted. The chapter closed with the distant sound of sirens, just faint enough to be ignored, but not for long. Kate exhaled slowly, her hands rising just enough to signal surrender. The gang exchanged smug glances, already relishing their presumed victory. Greg stepped closer, his boots crunching over the gravel as he loomed over her like a storm cloud. But instead of pleading or panicking, Kate reached into her pocket with the calm precision of someone retrieving a grocery list. "All right," she said softly, "you win." Her fingers emerged, holding a small rectangular badge encased in a worn leather holder. She flipped it open and extended it toward Greg, her expression unreadable. "Take a look," she said, her tone light but layered with something colder. Greg snatched the badge, chuckling as he glanced at it. His eyes skimmed the text, but the smile vanished as quickly as it had appeared. His brows furrowed, his lips parted as if to say something, and then he froze. The badge caught the sunlight, illuminating 3 letters that made his entire crew go silent. FBI. Greg's face drained of color, his bravado crumbling into disbelief. He turned the badge over, as if hoping it might magically transform into something harmless, like a library card. "FBI?" he stammered, his voice cracking. "You're kidding, right? This isn't real." Kate's lips curled into a slow, deliberate smile, her eyes locking onto his with a predator's patience. "Oh, it's real," she said, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "And before you ask, I'm not just any agent. Organized Crime Division." "That's right, Greg. I've had my eye on you for a while now." She leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Especially you." Greg stumbled back a step, his hands clutching the badge like it might explode. Behind him, the other bikers began shifting uncomfortably, their earlier bravado replaced with a creeping sense of doom. This, Greg sputtered, searching for words that wouldn't come. Kate straightened, snapping the badge back from his trembling hands with the grace of someone reclaiming what was rightfully theirs. "Surprise," she said with a wink. And then the roar returned, not the guttural thunder of motorcycles, but the deep, commanding growl of engines far more imposing. 3 sleek black SUVs screeched into the parking lot, their tinted windows gleaming under the desert sun. Doors flew open, in perfect synchronization, and out poured a squad of armed agents, their movements crisp and precise. "FBI, hands where we can see them," barked the lead agent, his voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. The bikers froze, their bravado disintegrating in an instant. Jake, the wiry one, instinctively reached for the gas pump, but a sharp glare from one of the agents stopped him mid-motion. Greg turned to Kate, his face a mixture of desperation and disbelief. "You set us up," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Kate tilted her head, her expression one of mock surprise. "Set you up?" she echoed, feigning innocence. "Greg, you practically gift-wrapped yourself. Honestly, you made my job easy. I should thank you." The agents moved in quickly, securing the bikers with practiced efficiency. Greg's hands were yanked behind his back, cuffs snapping into place with a satisfying click. As the commotion unfolded, the onlookers began murmuring among themselves. Phones were raised, capturing every second of the takedown. The teenage clerk from earlier let out a low whistle, his fear replaced with awe. Kate stepped back, watching the scene with a sense of calm satisfaction. One of the agents approached her, nodding respectfully. "All yours, Agent Walker," he said. Kate smirked, her gaze drifting to Greg one last time. "Don't worry," she said, loud enough for him to hear. "I'm sure you'll have plenty of time to reflect on your life choices where you're headed." Greg glared at her, his mouth opening as if to retort, but no words came out. Instead, he was guided into one of the SUVs, his shoulders slumping in defeat. Kate turned back to the stunned crowd, her smile now warm and reassuring. "Thanks for your patience, folks," she called out. "Sorry about the mess. Drinks on me, just don't ask the FBI to cover it." The gas station erupted in laughter and applause, the tension dissolving into a buzz of excitement. Kate adjusted her sunglasses, glanced at her dented car, and shrugged. "Not bad for a day's work," she muttered to herself, before striding toward the SUVs, ready to wrap up her mission with a flair only she could pull off. The gas station parking lot erupted into chaos as the bikers' survival instincts kicked in. Jake, the wiry one, darted toward his bike, his boots skidding on the gravel. He reached for the handlebar, but before his fingers could close around it, an agent tackled him to the ground with the precision of a linebacker. "Hands behind your back," the agent barked. Jake let out a squeal that sounded far less intimidating than he probably intended. Another biker, a burly man with a jagged scar across his cheek, made a break for the opposite direction, only to stop dead in his tracks as 2 more SUVs roared into the lot, blocking every possible exit. "Nowhere to run, genius," Kate called out, her voice cutting through the commotion like a razor. Greg, meanwhile, stood rooted to the spot, his bravado thoroughly deflated. He watched as his crew was subdued one by one, his mind racing, but his body refusing to cooperate. His hands twitched at his sides, but he knew better than to make any sudden moves. Kate sauntered toward him, her posture relaxed, but her gaze unyielding. The agents moved around her like clockwork, cuffing the bikers and securing the scene, but she had eyes only for Greg. "Well, Greg," she began, her tone almost conversational, "how's it feel to be on the other side of the fun for a change?" He swallowed hard, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Look, I didn't know," he stammered, his voice barely audible. Kate raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a sly smile. "Didn't know?" she repeated, her voice dripping with mock disbelief. "Oh, come on. You mean to tell me you didn't know harassing random people at gas stations might end poorly? Shocking." Greg's face turned an impressive shade of red as he fumbled for words. "Listen, we didn't mean—" Kate held up a hand, cutting him off. "Save it," she said. "Your face is already in our database, and let me tell you, it's not a great look. But don't worry, it's about to get a lot worse." Greg opened his mouth to protest, but the words caught in his throat as the two agents stepped up behind him, snapping handcuffs onto his wrists with practiced efficiency. The crowd of onlookers, which had grown considerably, began to murmur. Some whispered in disbelief, while others had their phones out, recording every second of the spectacle. Kate turned to the lead agent, giving him a curt nod. "Get them out of here," she said. The agents began escorting the bikers to the waiting SUVs, their protests and half-hearted apologies falling on deaf ears. Jake, still trying to save face, shouted something about this being a misunderstanding, but it was drowned out by the sound of the crowd clapping. As the last of the bikers was loaded into the vehicles, someone in the crowd called out, "Hey, what's your name?" Kate paused, glancing over her shoulder with a wry smile. "Agent Walker," she said, her voice carrying just enough edge to leave an impression. "Tell your friends." With that, she walked back to her car, the afternoon sun glinting off the shattered remains of her phone on the ground. She slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and gave the gas pedal a firm press. The sedan kicked up a cloud of dust as it rolled out of the lot, leaving behind a parking lot filled with awestruck witnesses and a gang of defeated bikers headed for a very long day. "Not bad," she muttered to herself, her lips curving into a satisfied grin as the open road stretched out before her. "Not bad at all."